Hey everybody, Steve Gore. I'm the artist at Chainsaws for Charity. We do have a website up. It's www.chainsawsforcharity.org, to where you can see a lot more information as far as who we are, who we're affiliated with, our sponsors and things like that, and our current missions. So what I want to do is move forward now, and let's move into the education part of it. As far as that goes, this is just my take on the situation and things. I don't want to focus on the specific onsets and the differences. We all know that PTSD affects our military, law enforcement, fire and rescue, EMTs, level 1 trauma center nurses and surgeons, things like that, and also the VOCs, which is the victims of crime. So I want to focus on, start from the beginning, I guess, which would be an onset. How does PTSD present itself in our lives? Everything that I share with you is not my knowledge. Okay, it's nothing that, I'm not the end all be all. I was welcomed into the PTSD community April 3rd of '09. That's my anniversary, if you will. And like I said, I don't want to focus on what the groups are that I belong in or whatever as far as PTSD goes. I want to talk about what it was. Anyway, long story short, everything I share with you was taught to me and to me by our Vietnam veteran community. 2012, I traveled with the Vietnam Wall, and as an artist, that was just an incredible honor, to say the least. Me, my brother, my father, all served in the Navy. My nephew is currently serving in the Navy. My uncle, he is an Army veteran, post-Korean War. And unfortunately, we are a Gold Star family also. My cousin Nick was killed in Iraq, and we're coming up on 13 years since that event happened. So anyway, our support of that particular branch of the PTSD community, our military support runs through and through my family, and military's been a part of our family forever and ever. So you have our support 100%. Anyway, getting back to the discussion at hand, I wanted to talk about the onset. For me personally, April 3rd of '09 was an event that changed my life in a very, very dramatic way. With that, there was a lot of busyness after the fact. For a combat veteran coming home, for instance, when you come home, there's a lot of the welcomes and things that are going on nowadays. There's the being with a family and photos and going out to dinners and seeing old friends. And anyway, what I'm saying is those kind of activities can run for a few months, or up to a year or so, and it's a distraction, really. In my case, the situation happened, and then I had about 4 months of the medical things, the doctors and the professionals, and all of that chaos. Followed right behind that, as soon as that distraction settled down, then we had lawyers and all the legal things that came on the back of my particular situation, and that ran on for longer than I cared for, but roughly another 4 or 5 months. Anyway, PTSD didn't present itself, in my case, make itself known in my life until about a year, I'd say almost a year and a half after the initial event. How it presented itself was one night I had a nightmare, and that word doesn't seem to cover what I'm talking about. And I think all of us universally across the board, no matter what your onset or particular group of PTSD you belong to, we all have those nightmares. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mine was unbelievable. It was the sounds, the smells, the tastes. To say a night terror, even that's an underestimation and everything. But it happened the first time, and it rocked my world for the whole next day. You know, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop focusing on those things. But it happened the next night, and the next night, and the next night. And after the fourth night with that broken sleep, come about day 5, somewhere in there, it got to where I was afraid to go to sleep. And once again, I feel that that's a commonality that we all share. You know exactly what I'm saying. These clips are to help you to understand that you're not alone. It's also to help show commonalities across the board in our PTSD community. And at the same time, educate the people that love us, the people around us, our families, and people that are not part of the PTSD community. Anyway, getting back on point, after 4 or 5 days, I said, the broken sleep, plus now I became afraid to go to sleep. I got into that situation of sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation is number one for brainwashing or changing. They do it to us in boot camp, where they run us at high stress levels, lack of sleep, feed, crash, up again, go, go, go. And that's how they basically break us down and reshape us into the men that graduate and wear that uniform. So with PTSD, when PTSD gets us in that same sleep deprivation mode, after about 5 days, you start the negative thoughts process, and the negative thought now becomes very easily implanted or impregnated into our brain. Okay, it becomes the primary thought process. After 4 or 5 days, I started getting to where I was happy to be alive. I was so very, very grateful to have survived what I had to go through. But like I said, with the nightmares and what it did at that level of fear and what I was seeing and the realism of those nightmares, and then the fear of sleep, and then the negative thoughts started. I only started to see and recognize things around me that were wrong in my life. I started feeling sorry for myself. I started only focusing on the things I couldn't do because I was so physically injured and still going through the healing stages from the initial event. And once that started, it was just a slow dissension. It was just a everyday doom and gloom. And once again, that was the onset for me for PTSD. That's how PTSD presented itself. We're going to get more into these sorts of things and how it progressed and how it affects us all. But this is the first video. I hope that we're all in this fight together. I hope we're all going to work together. Maybe this is something that doesn't track for you, but maybe down the road someone it does. If you're in the PTSD community, or if you're out in the outside of our community, please share the video. Let's all work together. Get into a mutual sharing thing. Let's all start a education campaign. Chainsaws for Charity brings to the table corporations that are backing us all in the PTSD community. To say that was a lot of work and a lot of time and an effort to make that happen would be an understatement. We are working on a project now. This will be our 4th year involved in it. Anyway, I hope this helps people understand that, one, they're not alone. Once again, maybe you're on set. Mine was delayed about 1.5 years from the initial incident. Some people go 7 or 8 years after cycling out of the military. I've also spoken to and worked with our fire departments, our law enforcement and things, and most of them, PTSD presents itself after they retire. And I just met a man in Branson, Missouri at an absolutely wonderful venue where they support our veterans like nothing I've ever seen in the country. But anyway, getting back to that, this man has been home 46 years. He cycled out after being a combat veteran in Vietnam, worked another 40 years as a business, retired, and just last year PTSD has presented itself for him and his family. So there is no one size fits all. There are no guidelines, and when and if PTSD shows up, it's kind of, in some cases, majority of the cases, it's on a, if you will, a delay fuse before it presents itself. I do know of cases out there, and I've spoken to quite a few of them, that it's instantaneous. An event is so horrific that it automatically makes itself part of someone's life. Either way, we all know the end result of PTSD if it's not supported, if it's not being educated, if it's being isolated. We all know what happens at the end. But with that being said, let's all work together. And hopefully that this time next year we have brought down the numbers significantly. With that being said, much love to y'all. For everybody who's doing what they're doing in the small nonprofit PTSD support groups, no matter what group you're in, military, law enforcement, or whatever, man, thank you all so very much for what you're doing. For the civilians that are watching, backing, and sharing, and doing what you're doing, God knows I love you, and thank you so very, very much. For all the people that are working with us behind the scenes, behind these mindsets and thoughts, and where to move forward. Very excited. Can't wait. We'll be sending the messages out and making the phone calls. Either way, God bless. Good night, and let's have a great week. All right, we'll talk to you later.